Hi guys, welcome back. I have a Spellbinders November, yes, Towering Blooms card to make, and this card creates a sort of the whole of the front of an A2 size card. But the background, I wanted something a little bit different. So I'm using Kaleidoscope embossing folder. It's like a 3D embossing folder from Simon Says Stamp. It came in one of the kits from a long time ago. I have videos on that too. But I decided to do a white background, and by embossing the background, it then creates some interest in the background. That's a lot of backgrounds, but you know what I mean. So it creates a bit of interest. So it goes across the front of a A2 size card. I believe this one is an actual A2 size card. Sometimes I create slightly smaller cards, but you know, they're about that size. But it will fit across, it will cover the front of an A2 by doing the, working with the design the way it's intended. But I decided that I would also use, I'm on a bit of a rainbow kick here by the look of it. So I have this, it's kind of like, it's not mirror cardstock, but it is very shiny. And it's I don't know how to explain it, but basically it's a Simon Says Stamp cardstock. It came again in a kit that I got, so forgive me, but I'm sure they've got it on their website. And it is this beautifully shiny, brightly coloured cardstock, and there were different sheets in there that had, so none of them were the same, but they had this sort of ombre between, say, the reds, orange and yellows, or the pinks and purples, or blues and greens, across the, kind of like making up a rainbow spectrum, if you like. And so what I did was I used the more pinks and purples to create the flowers, and then I used the greens and the greeny blues to create the leaves and the stems. And the vase, I used the pinky purpley kind of color. And so what I've started off with was the vase I wanted to have in like a 3D. So I've popped that up on some foam, and then some of the parts and pieces I'm going to put onto some foam adhesive, and some of them are going to be stuck flat. So this first stem, which has got this funny round thing on the end, but actually that's really handy when you're trying to stick something like a flower head to a stem. If you guys have ever tried that, it's pretty difficult. So if I was doing this in a different way and using this differently, having that little round thing on the end of the stem actually helps me. It would help to stick the flower head to it, or in fact you could stick a bit of foam on the back of that and have your flower sort of 3D. Because of the way these will arrange, I just needed to make sure it was tucked in underneath. But if you were doing a slightly different design, then you could do that, and I think that's really clever actually, because it is painful trying to get a really teeny tiny little skinny stem at the back of another part, or like a flower head or something like that, or balloons for those tiny little string bits. So the idea behind this is that you'll see the flowers at the top especially are kind of weirdly shaped. They've got almost like a corner on them, and so the idea is that they will then naturally, the way that they've designed it, sorry, not naturally, but the way they've designed it, it then lines up with the edge of the card, and so it fills that whole card in a almost rectangle way. And I think that's really quite clever. So and again, it's quite an artsy thing. It's, maybe not everybody's style, but I think they're really cool, and I really love this set. Now, I'm not a huge florally kind of person. Like, I love florals, but it's not, like some people will gravitate towards anything with a floral on it. I'm not one of those people. But I did really love this, and when I then made this, because the colors are really bright, which is so the opposite of what I'm normally like, but because the colors were really bright and it was shiny, it's like a shiny surface on the paper and the cardstock, it just, I don't know, and against the white background, it just worked. And it just, I do really love this one. My previous video, I think that's the way I'm doing these, with the other November die set, which I think is the small die of the month, I did not love the card that I created there. But this one, oh, love it. Just love it. So what I've done is also popped up those two big flowers in the top corners, and the leaves and stems there I have stuck down flat. Now there are 3 leaves to go sort of hanging off the edge of the vase, which I'm going to partly stick down flat and partly pop up on foam. So I'm kind of working with the fact that I've put a little pot up on some adhesive, so I want some of those things to be at the same level. And obviously if there's a leaf lying over the pot itself, I don't want more 3D on that because it's going to be too bulky and it will sit funny. So you'll see what I mean in a minute. So on these two, I'm adding the foam to them, but on the one that then sort of lays over the front of the vase, you'll see I'll just stick that one flat. I believe this is a while ago since I made this, but I think that's what I do. I really should put these cards in front of me when I'm doing the voiceovers. Anyway, so I'm going to pop these leaves on now, and these are all just foam adhesive on the back of them. And what I'm also doing is I'm adding to the foam, I'm adding a little bit of, this is Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. I really love this adhesive, it's really good. But I'm sticking a little bit of like a dot of it onto the foam as well, because we're going onto a bumpy surface. So the 3D embossment folder cardstock in the background, a foam adhesive, although it will stick to it, it may pop off. So your way around that is to add some extra liquid adhesive, and that should just help to bond the card to the other piece, your die cut piece. That's what I was trying to say. So we then have this other little floral that's going to stick out with these, like, I don't know what they are, berry type things, or like pods. I don't know. I don't know plants very much. I know some plants, but not all plants. Anyway, there's 3 layers to this. So you have the stem, which is the bluey green color that I used. Then I decided on adding some black because I can't help myself. And so I'm just figuring out, they're all a slightly different shape and size. So I'm just figuring out which one goes where, and then I will stick them on. Obviously sticking to a shiny surface, this is another thing. Wet adhesive is going to be your best friend. It's the same with things like glitter cardstock, mirror cardstock, your shiny surfaces, anything with a weird texture, or, you know, like an embossing folder, that kind of thing. Your wet adhesive is going to definitely be your mate for this, because it will help to bond those pieces together. Now, obviously, going onto a slicker, that was a mouthful, slicker surface, it will slide around a bit, so you have to give it a bit of time to dry. By the time I got around doing this section, I then should have enough, it should be okay to stick the top layer on. And I also kind of remembered which one I'd stuck down first, so I then went back to that first one to then stick the top layer on, because it would have dried off a little more than the rest of it. Or maybe I'm going to wait until I've done this flower first. So this is for another florally section on the left. This will go on the left hand side, and this has this cool kind of flower thing. Again, I don't know what flower they are, and it's got the leaves and then the sort of bud that sits behind it. And when you line them up in true Spellbinder style, they make it so easy to line these things up. It's really so straightforward and genius. So while those are both drying, the little berry pod things, whatever they're called, I don't know, while those are drying, and the other floral for the bottom, I went back to the little the bigger flowers on the top, and there's these centers. Now the centers actually do emboss onto the center of the flower itself, so you can actually line up the centers in there. I did not realize this until a little bit later, which is while I'm doing a little, little wheelie thing there to get them in the right place, because I didn't realize that was actually there until I looked at the second one. So get those in place, and then there's a third layer for these as well, which are these teeny tiny little dots. So when I was die cutting these out, this is the other thing. This is why these centers are green, and why I'm telling you this. When I was die cutting these out, I didn't want to have to die cut too many things too many times to get all the different colors. So because also I'm limited by the amount of this particular cardstock, because it was what, like I say, just what I had in a kit. So where some of the dies had more than one thing that you needed to cut out, you can of course cut them in however many colors, but I kind of just went, right, that's going to be for that section, and whatever color it is, that's the color it is. I went with the majority, like the thing, like say it was the leaves, and it was because the centers are in the green color, they would have probably been for those sort of leaves that are hanging off the bottom of the vase. So I would have just cut all of that out at the same time, and not overthought. I don't know the word. Overthunk. I'm going to go with that. It too much, and so my centers of the top flowers are green as opposed to a yellow or something like that, which is sort of more traditional. And I also only wanted to use these colors, so that was another reason for it. So sometimes you just don't overthink it, and I know this is very difficult, and I'm the worst one to say don't overthink something. But don't overthink it sometimes. Just go with it. Go, right, these are the colours I want to work with, and that's what I'm die cutting, and you just make it work. And this one, like I say, I actually really love this card. It just turned out really, 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 really nicely, and it's just fun and bright and happy, and we could all use a bit of that, so let's just go with that. So I then got while I've been waffling, I have stuck all the little pod things, I'm going to call them pods, onto the top layer onto that. And so the black cardstock underneath is just the top little section that you'll see that sticks out. I guess like just a little decorative part of the pod. And so I stuck those on, and just letting them dry under a acrylic block, just so that the adhesive can bond, because now the back of the shiny cardstock, the coloured cardstock, is sort of a matte finish, so that onto the black matte cardstock shouldn't take too long to dry, as opposed to the shiny on shiny, if that makes sense. So now that I've got my pieces ready, I can start to properly put the rest of this together. I'm taking this flower that's going to overhang on the left hand side, and just working out, before I take the backings off of the foam adhesive, just working out where I need the foam and where I will then need some wet adhesive, because some of those leaves are going to overhang directly over the top of the vase, and some of them are going to be away from the vase. So I want the vase and those things hanging off to be the same height. And so that's what I'm sort of working out now. And once I've taken the backers off, when I'm happy with where those pieces are going to go, then I will also add some extra adhesive, wet adhesive, to the back of the foam, again because it's going onto a bumpy background, i.e. our embossed background. And the areas that don't have any foam, I'm going to add some wet adhesive just directly to the back of the cardstock, so that it can just stick to the vase. So that's what I'm doing here. So it's a tiny little drop of adhesive. It doesn't have to be anything major. It's just an extra little bond. Now, getting this in without putting that glue everywhere, a little tricky, but it's fine. The only reason I say about that is because it will show up on a shiny surface. On a matte cardstock, it's not as obvious. But I managed to get it off there, And also once it's dry, you can use a, I'm going to just say it the way I would say it, use what I call a booger eraser. So, it's just like it looks like a weird waxy, almost like the wax. Do you remember the wax bars, I think they used to call them, for like surfers, for their surfboards? They used to rub those like waxy things on there to help grip when they're standing on them and all that fun stuff. Anyway, it kind of looks like that, but not. It's like a weird rubbery thing. I'm sure you would have seen me use it in my videos. And it basically, I've had that thing for years. It will last you forever. But it basically helps you when the glue is dry. Wait for it to completely dry, and then you can just gently rub over the glue itself, and it will just sort of grip to it and pull it off, but it won't damage your paper and that. So that's why, just make sure it's very dry before you try and do that. Otherwise you may take the surface of the paper off, because it'll still be too wet to do that, if that makes sense. So yeah, I can't remember what they're called now, but I call it a booger eraser. But anyway, so with the pods, I did the same thing. I put adhesive on the foam adhesive on the back of the ones that are going to be kind of lined up with the vase, and those that are overlapping those little those leaves, I just put some wet adhesive on the back of that. And then the same with this last leaf. It's just going to go, because it's just hanging over the side and it's just hanging out there straight onto the vase, I just pop some wet adhesive on the back of that. And isn't that cute? Did you see how you can just layer the leaves? So the leaves first, then the pod, then the other leaf, and it looks like they're all tucked into each other. And I think that's just so clever. So now we're going to get our sentiment on, which I hadn't thought about at all, because, you know, I'm an idiot. And I had no clue where this was actually going to go. I thought it might fit down here, but it's not going to. And it is the word smile. But I also didn't want to fiddle and faff with foam on the back of this, because it's so tiny. Yeah. Did not want to have to deal with that. And that would have looked okay there, I think. But I wasn't totally happy with it there. So in the end, I'm actually going to just lift it and make it work on these, make it work across the raised areas. It will make more sense once we actually start sticking it down, but I made it work, because I didn't want to have to, like I say, deal with foam and trying to get foam onto these teeny tiny little letters. I could have tried to die cut it with some foam, like fun foam, but I don't always have the best luck with that. So I just thought this was easier. I could have also doubled up or tripled up, you know, layers of the same, like to cut the letters out more than once, and just lay all the different letters up. But again, I wanted to keep this kind of simple. So we're going to just stick it straight across the center there. Excuse me, just sneezed. Straight across the center there, and it works out beautiful. I will also add some, and I can't remember if I did this in the video, but I will also add some Nouveau White Blizzard, which is like a clear, sparkly gel, I guess you want to call it. I will add some of that to the word, just so that it stands out even more, and it just adds a bit more bling to the card. Because why not? So I'm going to pop the little, I don't know what this thing is. Is it a tiddle? I don't want to sound like I'm swearing, but I think it's called a tiddle. Anyway, pop that little thing on, that dot on the eye. I just thought it made sense to put that on as well. And then just cleaning up some of the adhesive, just so that there's not too much gunk left afterwards when it dries, even though it'll dry clear. And then set an acrylic block on top of it, just to help it sort of bond a bit better, because like I say, it's going onto a slick surface, so it needs a little bit of time to actually bond with that surface. So there you go, guys. It's very, very simple. Oh, I added the Nouveau on there. It will take a bit of time to dry. It looks a bit cloudy at the moment, but it will sparkle like crazy once it's dry. But there you go, guys. So until next time, bye for now.